Hello everyone, my name is Lino Fera, the host of Cribwolf Talks. Every month we focus on issues and provide information related to the critical housing crisis and the quality of life faced by members of our vulnerable population, primarily individuals with developmental disabilities and those with various physical and mental challenges. We search for topics based on events that are current and have a direct or indirect correlation on our vulnerable population. We invite guests to appear on our program who provide our audience with a better understanding of the issues being discussed on our show, Cribwolf Talks. The lack of supportive housing remains one of the most serious issues faced by many families, especially those families caring for their loved ones who need constant care and guidance. In one of our early podcasts, I had the pleasure of chatting with Mr. David Petkau, Director of Community Engagement at Christian Horizons. In that earlier podcast episode, we discussed the Christian Horizons organization and their changing culture that is based on their belief that people who experience disabilities belong to communities in which their God-given gifts are valued and respected. The change in strategic direction appears to be focused in allowing the people they service to have a choice and a voice on what services and which community they wish to live in. Our program ended with us wishing much success to Christian Horizons with their multi-unit residential project they were planning to initiate. We acknowledged that this new and exciting housing project would address the critical housing shortage, the changing environment, and the need for more inclusive residential living arrangements with the necessary support systems. A tall order, but a very welcome one. Without further ado, I am very pleased to introduce my good friend, David Petkau. David, thank you for coming to the show today. It's great to see you here today. It's been, a year since we last saw each other? You were on one of our first podcasts.
It has been, and yes, I was.
Time just flies.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about your new project, your multi-unit residential project in West Central Ontario. And however, I want to get into some other questions right now related to what I've read on your website, specifically your new strategic plan. It's called the Outcome-Based Community Plan, which has 4 outcomes, right? And the first one being people experience core values. And there are actually 4 core values to your first outcome from what I read. The first one being valuing people. So tell me about what's behind this core value, valuing people.
Yeah, so our Onward strategic plan is central to shaping who we are and what we're doing into the future for sure. And starting off with those core values like valuing people is fundamental for us, absolutely. And the valuing people comes from really, I think, the 55-year journey that we as an organization have been on and what we've witnessed in our society and in our communities of, unfortunately, a lot of people not being valued. And so what we're bringing to the table, to the future there, is how do we make sure that people experience that value? We as an organization with our Christian heritage and our Christian faith really believe that everyone's made in the image of God, and therefore that gives intrinsic value to people, meaning everybody has a place in the community, everybody has gifts and abilities and skills to bring to the community so that they can give to that community as well as receive from that community. So being valued is, one of those core building blocks for us as we move forward. We want everything based on those things. Great.
And that's so important, right? Because it's like not judging a book by its cover, right? So individuals may have disabilities, varied abilities of one kind or another, and we tend to jump to conclusion and kind of look at these people as something different or whatever, but they have all gifts, they're talented, they all have the right to coexist and to be within society, accepted in the community, right? So it's great that people acknowledge that, and it's inherent in your first core value. The second one is fostering belonging. So that's like an interesting one, fostering belonging. I think I know what that means, but what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, 2 really key words there, fostering and belonging. So the fostering piece is really cultivating and creating the space and creating the opportunity for the belonging to grow and for communities to grow. And the belonging piece is, I think, an evolution from inclusion, right? It's that next step where we like to say, you know, inclusion is we've made a space for you, and belonging is we miss you when you're not here. And I think that's a really key principle to that core value for us of fostering, doing things that foster belonging for people, where it's not just space has been made, but they're an intrinsic part of the community that, yeah, you're missed if you're not here. So I think that's the heart of that value for us.
Well, give me an example. How do you make that happen, though? Like, I mean, I understand it, you know, when you explain it to us, but how do you make somebody, you know, belong in the community or foster this kind of...
I'm not sure you make them,
Yeah.
but I think you create the opportunity for meaningful relationships to grow. And I think these things are built on people really knowing people, people understanding what gifts and abilities they bring to a relationship. And that relationship could be everything from being a part of the community, a community group, to a very personal friendship relationship. I think it's when people know who you are, know your abilities and skills and gifts, as well as your challenges and the things that are hurdles in your life. I think those are the things that really help us to really understand belonging. I know for me, you know, I belong in places, or I enjoy being places where people know me and know who I am and what I bring to the table, and sometimes what I receive from the community because of my own shortfalls or challenges in life. So I think it's really about relationships, and it's really about respecting everyone's equality in that.
So your third one that in your strategic plan is servicing others as part of this first outcome. Servicing others in what way?
Yeah, serving others is critical because it's really about the fact that sometimes we have to commit to doing things for and with other people to serve them. So it's about posturing ourselves as an organization so that others can receive from the gifts and abilities of us as an organization, or the community partners that we have, or the people in our community that can help that out. So I think that's really about really a servant attitude, knowing that sometimes you're walking alongside people, and sometimes you're simply providing and offering services to them. So again, a core value of that we want people to know that when they need something from us, that we're going to have that posture of service.
Okay, so you also talk about the fourth one is respecting gifts. What can you tell us about that part?
Everybody has gifts. True. And everybody needs to be valued for those gifts. And I think, again, this can be seen a little bit in the history of our culture and our society, where people, especially with a developmental disability, been institutionalized. And I don't think there's any easy way to say this other than separated from the rest of society and not valued, and not we didn't wrap around them and say, hey, you're part of our community because you got something to give. Instead, we said, oh, you need services and you should be treated like a patient and therefore be in this institution. And of course, we've come a long, long way from that. And so we want to make sure that people experience the fact that they have something to offer. Absolutely. As does everybody. And so that gifting piece is just, I think, a statement of everybody's value, and that communities really are missing out when we don't give everybody the opportunity to exercise those gifts and skills and abilities. And that can lead to giving to other people, and can also lead to receiving. So I think that's a really great part of community life.
Very good. So the second outcome says the people self-direct their services. What does this mean?
Yeah, so I think this one is good to start by saying, what does it not mean? And what does it not mean, again, is somewhat historical in that it doesn't mean people are told, this is what you need, this is what you're going to get in terms of services, this is the descriptor we've put on you. Instead, it's saying, what do you need? How would you like to direct your life and the services that you receive, rather than just have someone else decide for you? I think it's incredibly liberating, and it's incredibly respectful, and it's growing our communities to be able to welcome people in and to be able to say, what do you need from us? I think some of the things that we can reflect on in the past are when agencies, well-meaning as we have been, have done and made decisions for people rather than with people, or decisions by people. And I think that's the change that we want to see happen in our own services, thus it's part of our strategic plan, and in the community around us.
You know, it's so in line with today's movement. Eh? We're hearing more and more about inclusivity, but specifically to this core, this outcome is the choice, right? The fact that an individual with developmental disabilities or any other varied abilities has the right to choose, right? To make decisions on their own, right? And I think that's what I'm hearing from you. So my accolades to that. That's good to hear that.
And I would just add to that as well, that, you know, it's a mentality, but it's also something that our system needs to grapple with, because how organizations and communities are funded, I think it's changing. And we're working really hard with provincial government partners and others to say, how can this work better for people so that they have much more control over the services that they receive and how they receive them and the choices that they have and the ability to change those choices with whatever's happening in their life at the time. I think it's really critical for us to press into that. And I'm really proud of the work that Christian Horizons is doing around that.
Great. And it's true. I mean, this doesn't work unless both sides work together, right? An individual with disabilities wants to choose, wants to make decisions, but the community agencies also have to adopt this way of thinking and incorporate that into their operations, right? And that's great. So the last outcome is people experience communities of belonging. I think this is clearly in line with the growing sentiments of inclusivity, if I'm not mistaken, right? Can you elaborate a little bit more on this last outcome of people experiencing communities of belonging?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, easy to kind of reflect on the past when that wasn't happening in people's lives and in the services that surrounded people. They didn't experience that belonging because they were a service recipient. They were a spectator in their own world, if you would be. But that idea of moving from inclusion to belonging is kind of like inclusion saying, we've made space for you, but belonging takes it a little bit further and says, we miss you when you're not here. And that's a really kind of cool nuance for us to be thinking about, to say, oh, if somebody's not here and they're missed, then they belong here. And I think that's something that we really need to contemplate, because it's really critical for us. So that fostering belonging and communities where people belong is really fundamental to everything we do. And you know, the people that receive services from Christian Horizons span a wide range of what they want, what they need in their lives, what they choose for in their lives. And so some of the work that we're doing is really trying to open up that, let's say, menu of services that people can choose from, so that they can figure out, where do I belong in this community? And I think another element of that is again, I'll say that evolution that we've experienced as an organization is changing from doing for people to doing with people, and also understanding that we as an organization not only we shouldn't be everything to everybody. So the idea that we need to play a role in someone's life, but we don't need to do everything. And we've got to help people access things from the community and be a part of the community. And I think that's the neat thing about, I know we'll talk a little bit about some of the multi-unit stuff, but I think that's a really cool feature, moving that forward as well.
Thank you for those comments on the outcome belonging. I'm really endeared to that topic because I look at a family, with caring for an individual with developmental disabilities or even varied abilities, waiting to transition into independent living arrangement with supports. You want to be certain that they're going to be in a community that they grew up in, that they're accustomed to, that they're familiar with, right? So that, to me, is a very important outcome. I'm so glad that you incorporated that in your strategic plan. So let's move now to your very exciting multi-residential construction project, sir. That's started, that you told us about a year ago. Can you tell us if you're on target, David?
Of course we're not on target. It's a challenging environment. Mm-hmm. I won't kid you. The project, we're super excited about it. We've got so much to celebrate in terms of the design and the partners that are on board. But it's really at some critical stages, there's no doubt. But the vision stays the same. And that vision is to create that place of belonging and that place of inclusion. And so yeah, we've got our challenges ahead of us. We're not there yet. We don't have a shovel in the ground, but we're working really hard to try and figure things out.
Great. Do you feel, are there any major stumbling blocks that you can tell us about that you've incurred since you initiated this project a year ago?
Yeah, well, the pandemic has been a real challenge, there's no doubt. And I think we've all seen it in terms of interest rates and labor issues and price escalation. So we're at a stage right now where we're figuring out what the cost of the project will actually be. And our commitment is to affordability. We really want to make sure that a person that lives on ODSP can afford a home, and that is priority number one for us. So we're working through those issues, and that means a lot of discussions with partners, whether they be government partners, donors. So we've got some things that we've got a journey down yet, but I would say the economic impacts right now and the economic realities are really the biggest thing. And I know that that's true of so many other people that are pressing into this space and trying to figure out housing affordability for people.
Well, I can imagine that COVID was a deterrent for many individuals starting to projects during that period. So I'm not surprised to hear that one. I was just recently, David, I attended a mayoral candidate debate, with three people, running for mayor. The reason I went there was the topic of choice was affordable housing. So it falls right into our discussion. They danced around a lot of the topics, but there's some good ideas, and then some that probably would not come to fruition for various reasons. But what I did learn was some things about inclusionary and exclusionary zoning. So zoning is a big thing, and I would have thought that would have been. Was that an issue with your project that you're doing, your new project?
Not so much with that one. There were some technical zoning things around parking and that, but no, because our goal here is homes, homes for people, no matter who you are. And certainly we as an organization wanted to make sure that that included people that experience a developmental disability. So that's very different than going into a community and saying, you know, I want to create a group home or a institution, which is not what we're talking about at all here. So really the zoning issue didn't impact us that way at all, because the end goal for us here is that people supply their own homes with their own income. And because we know some people are living off ODSP and have very limited income, that's why we want to be really committed to deep affordability in this project and in another project that we have up in Northern Ontario.
True, but just to remind our audience is that when you first introduced to us this new project, it was a 20-unit multi-unit residential building, correct? With mixed tenancies. That's still the idea of having individuals with developmental disabilities, maybe with some other vulnerable population member or some other interest group. Is that the way this project is going to be continued, or has there been changes to the concept at that time that was submitted to the various authorities?
Yeah, no change there at all. Envisioning a very diverse community with diverse levels of rent that includes deep affordability for a portion of the building, for sure.
Yeah, because I really like that, right? I mean, an individual, just to be clear, you don't have somebody with developmental disabilities or somebody else, some other member of the vulnerable population, maybe a senior citizen or some, other individual working or living in a place, that is inclusive and, interactive, right? So this would be wonderful. If we had more of these, I think we all know that we would be moving towards a time when people's wait lists would be diminishing instead of increasing.
It's critical to the model for the diversity of the model, but because of the economic challenges, it's now also really critical to the financial model.
Absolutely.
Because you really need market or close to market rents to help make that affordability happen. And that's really the challenge with increased interest rates, with decreased government funding. CMHC, I think, is getting really challenged with the level of funding that is happening. So we really need to continue advocating for a lot of systems change as well around affordable housing.
Well said. So we can't be on the show forever. We have to come to a close. But what would be David's final comment if you had a takeaway message for the audience? What would you like people to go away with? What message would that be?
I think my message would be we have got so much to celebrate around the journey that people that experience a developmental disability have had in our community and our society, and that journey to being in communities that belong. But at the same time, we have so much more work to do. And that includes housing, that includes choice in the services that you provide, that includes making sure that the community is a welcoming and belonging space. And that includes all those things we talked about earlier, about being valued for who you are, bringing your gifts and abilities, and experiencing that in community.
Well, I wish you all the luck and all the people at Christian Horizons and with this new strategic plan. Hope things go the way they're supposed to. And thank you for coming today, my friend.
My pleasure. Thank you.
We have come to the end of our show. I wish to express my gratitude to David Petkau for taking time to appear on our show today. It is very important that Christian Horizons has taken bold steps to make a difference in the community. Their new strategic plan, outcome-based planning, signifies that all the stakeholders are being heard. The people they service, their families, employees, and the community partners. Christian Horizons' new multi-residential project is important in that it gives us hope that many more nonprofits will be successful in bringing their housing model to reality, and in doing so, reduce the number of Canadians with varied abilities with these ridiculous wait lists. I know people have heard me say many times I only want my son and others to live in dignity, safe and fully engaged in the community of their choice. Thank you for watching and listening to our program, Cribwolf Talks. If you missed any of our previous webcasts, catch us on Your TV Halton, Cogeco's community channel covering local news and productions in the Burlington and Oakville areas. I'm well aware that all the Cogeco subscribers have many choices on Your TV Halton. Tuning into the community channels provides viewer with some very interesting community insights. We hope you will follow us on Your TV Halton. You can also visit cribwolftalks.com and various social media platforms for any of our posted episodes. Should you wish to share your story and be a part of our future webcast, please send us your story to info@cribwolftalks.com. I'm Lino Fera, and remember, let's turn the housing crisis from a discussion to a solution where all persons, with or without a disability, are secure in a place they call home.